Good afternoon, everybody. For my PI project, I decided to investigate food overproduction of plate-by-plate cafeteria station. I did my rotation at the private college campus, Albany College of Pharmacy and Health Sciences, so facility was located there. And this facility is operated by Chartwells. It caters to about 1,600 students. It produces about 5,200 meals per week, 900 meal plans, plus cash or credit sales. It has a diverse population of students, faculty, students from other schools, and also some of the Albany Medical Center personnel. This facility has 6 stations: Menutainment, Plate by Plate, BYOB, Rasa Verde, Chopped, and On-the-Go Salad. And for my PI project, I decided to concentrate on plate-by-plate station. So the objectives of this study were to investigate the amount of particular foods being overproduced at the plate-by-plate station and make recommendations based off of the results. Another objective was to investigate the cost benefit of particular foods and also make recommendations. And the third one was to investigate popularity of particular foods and make recommendations. The overall purpose of this study was to improve data collection on overproduction waste and to analyze this data to make insights and recommendations. And our recommendations would be based on the overproduction of the foods as well as the sales data related to those particular foods. And also insights gained from the study can be used in the decision process for choosing foods to include in the future menu and also in deciding which foods to remove from the menu. And now I'm going to discuss some of the problems related to this topic. And the first problem is food being overproduced. And there are a few ways the industry deals with these problems, which we were able to use in our study. So the industry deals with this problem by performing waste inventory analysis. And in our study, we specifically concentrated on gathering data for the overproduction of finished menu items. Another way the industry deals with it is food being reutilized. And in our study, we reused wasted food for the outtakes program, as well as component parts for other menu items. Another problem is overproduction not being properly logged. So usually the industry deals with this problem by communicating with and training of staff. And in our study, we trained staff to better recognize food wastes and added a procedure for making sure the waste log is being properly filled out. The next problem is cost benefit of foods not being investigated. Companies generally break down the cost of activities associated with the production of foods to determine the costs and then compare them to sales to determine the cost benefit. In our study, we had costs provided through the POS data along with the sales data, and we compared the two of them and were able to determine which foods are an economical waste. The next problem is popularity of foods not being taken into account to make menu decisions. So usually the popularity of food is influenced by the appearance of the menu and by the actual presentation of the foods. And by making menu and food presentation uniform, already in place before study, sales data can be used to actually figure out which foods are popular. And then in turn, figuring out which foods are popular allowed us to make recommendations on which foods should be kept or taken off from the menu. And next I'm going to discuss materials and methods section, in particular data collection method. So an overproduction log was filled out for 5 days by myself or by staff if I was not at the cafeteria. And for each item, the following were recorded: meal item name, date, lunch or dinner, item type, entree or side dish, amount produced in servings, and amount left over in service. And it was also noted if the food was utilized or not utilized. Sales data was provided from the POS database used by management. Next, an overproduction analysis was performed. We calculated percent overproduced by dividing amount overproduced by amount prepared, and then the meal items were sorted by percent overproduced from smallest to largest. Next, we constructed a graph and were able to analyze which foods produced the most waste in a Pareto-like analysis. We also had to work with the sales data, and in order to be able to do so, it needed to be broken down into the sales generated by the plate-by-plate station for dinner entrees, lunch entrees, and side dishes. And the revenue per item was calculated by multiplying the percent of the item type sold that day by the total gross sales generated at the plate-by-plate station that day. And then the menu items were sorted by the total sales they generated, and a graph was constructed. This graph was interpreted in a similar Pareto-like analysis, and we were able to determine which items sold the most or popularity of the items. Next, we graphed overproduction versus sales, and also a linear regression for overproduction was added to the graph. Analysis of the cost benefit of the menu items was accomplished by seeing which menu items had sales below overproduction and vice versa. This allowed us to determine which menu items are being overproduced and generating suboptimal sales. And then we knew that they needed to be cut from the menu or reutilized better. And the next section I'm going to be discussing is results. And here you can see our overproduction log, and it has following sections: meal item date, time of day, item type, amount prepared in servings, amount wasted in servings, and amount sold in servings. And this is the continuation of this document. And the next one is a percent overproduced, and we sorted it from smallest to largest. And here is the same data in a form of graph. And here you can see better which items were more overproduced and which items were less overproduced. And from the previous graph, top 5 overproduced were Spanish tofu, Italian antipasto salad, roasted cauliflower, white rice, and Spanish rice. And also top 5 least overproduced were pork carnitas, zucchini with squash, potatoes, chicken mozzarella panini, and carrots. And here you can see sales data that was provided to us by management. And this one is revenue per menu item. Next one, we sorted this information from smallest to largest. And also here is the same information in a graph according to the revenue generated. And from the previous graph, top 5 sales grossing foods were tater tots, spinach lasagna, regular lasagna, Italian tortellini, and tortellini primavera. And top 5 least sales grossing foods were spinach tofu, Caesar salad, Italian antipasto salad, carrots, and herbal rice. And the last graph is showing to us cost benefit as a function of overproduction versus sales. And from that graph, we noticed that there is a basic trend that the more an item is overproduced, the less sales it generates. And the foods were assigned to three different groups. First group is foods being wasted, and for this foods, cost of overproduction exceeded benefits of sales. And these foods were Spanish tofu, Italian antipasto salad, Mexican lasagna, roasted cauliflower, regular cauliflower, Italian green beans, and broccoli. The next group was foods being overproduced but not wasted. And for these foods, cost of overproduction was slightly bigger than benefits of sales. And these foods included couscous, corn, Italian chowder, white rice, Spanish rice, Mexican beans, and Italian hero subs. And the final group was foods with sales benefits a lot higher than overproduction. And this include pork carnitas, chicken mozzarella panini, lasagna, spinach lasagna, and tater tots. In the discussion and recommendations section, I would like to concentrate on variation of facility versus standard industry procedures. A two-stage planning process, dynamic orders versus static orders, was in place in our facility. They plan for cash orders, which are dynamic orders, and combo meal swipes, which are static orders. Proper waste log training and communication was not in place in our facility. Management did not monitor or train for proper use of waste log. Next one is ABC cost method was not in place in our facility. Industry standard of measuring cost of food items based on resource cost of activities and activity cost of creating the food item. Next one is food component perishability, which was not being monitored at our facility. And usually determining component perishability can be used to determine shelf life of food items and if they can be reused. And the last one, menu appearance, is not modified to sell less popular foods at our facility, and it could be used for food items which are often overproduced but must remain on the menu. An example of such items are vegetarian or vegan items. Based on the overproduction and revenue narratives, top 5 overproduced foods are not necessarily waste. Top 5 least overproduced foods are most likely underproduced because sales for these foods are low and overproduction is 0%. Top 5 revenue are most popular and bottom 5 revenue are least popular. Based on the cost-benefit narrative, there is a basic trend that the more an item is overproduced, the less sales it generates. And some of the items being overproduced are being wasted. These are the items with high overproduction and low sales. The most underproduced foods are Spanish tofu, Italian antipasto salad, Mexican lasagna, roasted cauliflower, regular cauliflower, green beans, and broccoli. Our recommendations for the foods that are being overproduced way more than they're being sold is removing them from future menus because they're not popular enough to generate sales and costs outweigh benefits. For the required vegan and vegetarian foods, recommendation is altering the menu names to sound more interesting, perhaps named after popular dorms or school sport teams. Foods that are high in overproduction and generate decent sales were couscous, corn, Italian chowder, white Spanish rice, Mexican beans, and Italian hero subs. These foods are most likely overproduced but not wasted. For these foods, it would be prudent to reutilize this in other dishes or to sell them in outtakes, as many of them are already being sold in outtakes. Foods that generated sales beyond overproduction, such as pork carnitas, chicken mozzarella panini, spinach lasagna, and tater tots. For these foods, these items should definitely be left on the menu, and all leftovers will sell well in outtakes. And now I'm going to discuss next steps that could be taken and the legacy. We recommend implement the industry procedures described earlier. Also implement recommendations about menu items. We also recommend develop managerial procedures which will include more management training and oversight over staff waste logging habits. And this will be overseen by Director of Dining Services. Improvement of cost and sales recording methods. ABC method for costs and sales data of every food item individually, not just a meal swipe or cash payment for a combo. And this will be overseen by Director of Operations and Controller. And here you can see our revised audit tool, and you can compare it to original waste log. And this is the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for your time.